In this video, we're going to find the critical numbers and the absolute maximum and absolute minimum values of the following functions on the given intervals. The first problem is f of x equals 2 times the sine of x minus cosine 2x. And we're looking at the equation on the interval 0 to 2 pi. First, let's start with the derivative. The derivative of 2 sine x is 2 cosine x. The derivative of cosine 2x will be sine x times 2x times 2. F prime of x equals 2 cosine x plus 2 times the sine of 2x. F prime of x equals 2 cosine x plus 2. Now sine of 2x is an identity, and sine of 2x is actually equal to 2 sine x times cosine x. So we'll make that substitution, simplify, and we now have that f prime of x is 2 cosine x plus 4 times the sine of x times the cosine of x. Now to find the critical numbers, we set the derivative equal to 0, and we're going to factor out the greatest common factor of 2 cosine x. Once we factor out 2 cosine x, we are left with 1 plus 2 sine x. Next step, we set each part equal to 0, so 0 equals 2 cosine x, or 0 equals 1 plus 2 times the sine of x. Solving the first equation, 0 equals 2 cosine x, we divide by 2, so 0 equals cosine x. Now we look at the unit circle, or recall from memory, where is the cosine of x equal to 0 on the interval 0 to 2 pi. The cosine of x is 0 the cosine of x equals 0 occurs twice on the unit circle. It occurs at pi over 2 and it occurs at 3 pi over 2. So there are the two answers for that equation. The next equation, 0 equals 1 plus 2 sine x, we'll subtract the 1 over. Next, divide by 2. And so we have negative 1/2 equals sine x. So we go to our unit circle and we determine where is the sine of x equal to negative 1 over 2. That occurs at 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. Now we'll do our table, and to help us determine our maxima and minima, we also have to include our endpoints, since absolute extrema can occur at the endpoint. So we start and we'll go in order from smallest to largest. Our left endpoint is 0. Our first critical number is pi over 2. The next one is 7 pi over 6. Next is 3 pi over 2. Next is 11 pi over 6. And the right endpoint is 2 pi. Now we plug each of those values back into the original equation. When we plug 0 in to 2 sine x minus the cosine of 2x, we get a value of negative 1. Next, we plug pi over 2 in to 2 sine x minus cosine 2x, and we get 3. We continue doing the same thing for 7 pi over 6. That'll give us negative 1.5. Next, we plug in 3 pi over 2, which will give us negative 1. Next, 11 pi over 6, which will also give us negative 1.5. And then finally, we plug in 2 pi and we get negative 1. Okay, so we look at our values now. The largest value was 3, so that means our absolute maxima occurs at pi over 2 comma 3. Notice we have two minimum values that are equivalent, so we're actually going to have two minima this time. The first minimum occurs at 7 pi over 6, negative 1.5, and the other minimum occurs at 11 pi over 6, comma, negative 1.5.